Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to call Dr. Zia Ahmed, Principal, Emerson College, Multan. Dr. Ahmed has 30 years of teaching experience and held various administrative positions at different organizations. His contributions in literary research are also noteworthy. The topic of his keynote address is Neo-Orientalism and Women, Literary Responses in Globalized and Digitalized 21st World.
Slides इसी हो जाएंगे आगे
जी
also
ये मैं कर्सर नहीं कंट्रोल हो कर्सर नहीं चल छोड़ो
need to restart I think. So which are the buttons to okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Before I start with the lecture or whatever we may call it, I would like to tell a little bit of the story first. It was in 1989 when I was selected as lecturer in English. And despite my best efforts to stay in Lahore and continue to satiate my fury for literature, I was forced to move to Multan. When I refused to go there, the officer at that time said, okay, we shall move to you, Miawali or Bhakkar, better go for Multan. So I went there. And believe me, since that time, I didn't find any opportunity like this to enjoy literature, to serve literature, or to talk about literature. Because South Punjab is filled up with the language, linguistic studies, etc. So I satiate my interest and thirst by visiting conferences on literature. And one of these conferences here. So that is why I'm really very thankful to Recollect 21 that they have afforded me this opportunity. So thank you and congratulations to Recollect. People, I am here very humbly present because the prodigies of literature, Dr. Shafat, Dr. Wasim, they have spoken before me. I was thinking there's no need to speak now because all is done, all is said. But just to do the duty, I'm here. And I will start with the idea given by Dr. Wasim that literature is a matter of representation. That's 100% right. But alongside that, it is political as well, especially when we talk about post-colonial literature, because that talks about the differences, the binary oppositions, and makes us understand the problems which happened, which will continue to happen now in future as well, because of the legacies of colonialism. I would say that post-colonial is a centrifugal force because constantly, in every age, at every time, in every space, it is spilling beans. and is letting the people know what is happening, what changes are coming because of that. For example, Said's Orientalism, 1978, very old, let me say. But because of post-colonial, it is refreshing itself everywhere, every time. And that is why we have the terms like neo-colonialism, NEO, and then it is new NEW, new colonialism, new Orientalism, etc., etc. Now, today I would like to see and discuss with you people, what is the change from when this theory of Orientalism moves from Orientalism to Neo-Orientalism? What is the change that has come? And what are the major causes which are working behind that? And when this change has come, has it brought some very significant change? I mean, change in the representation of women. And when Orientalism was presented at that time, women were not so significantly talked about as the man was talked about in the theory of Orientalism. And that's what I need to talk today by limiting myself only with the Pakistani representation of women and how New Orientalism has impacted the representation of women and what change has come in them. This is where I should be restricting myself. So moving on forward, one right woman. Sorry for that. These are actually the points on which I will be talking. That is, first of all, Said's Orientalism, as I said, in 1978. And later on, new theorists and critics come. Liza Lu, for example, she is talking about New Orientalism. What kind of talk she's making, that I shall be talking to you people. Hagan goes to talk about market Orientalism. And after that, we have a significant impact of 9/11 on the representations through Orientalism. And within all these processes, Orientalism has mutated. There are the mutations in it. What are these mutations and how does it mutate? That's what we need to talk about. And so relating it with post-colonial and New Orientalism, when especially in the start of this 21st century, we have the introduction of racialism, terrorism, Islamophobia everywhere, all over the world. And that is what is impacting it altogether and bringing a new shape of Orientalism, but still it is the same Orientalism where us and other distinctions were there. So that is why remaining within the framework of Orientalism, we need to see how it has become new. Like here, I would say that Edward Said in his book differentiated between two types of Orientalism, that is latent Orientalism, and then it is the manifest Orientalism. According to him, latent Orientalism does not change at all because it lives in the minds, it lives in the theories, it lives in the beliefs. And because of that, it would never change. What started in 1970s or even before that, it will continue to exercise itself. It will remain there, but the changes would come in manifest Orientalism. Whatever change Said says would come in knowledge, in everything that would come in the manifest Orientalism. So let us take manifest Orientalism further and leave latent Orientalism here. Having differentiated with that, let me talk to you people how Orientalism was represented in the 1970s when Edward Said was writing, and what was the space of women in that talk of Orientalism, in that theory of Orientalism. For example, it says Orientalism itself, furthermore, was an exclusively male province. Like so many professional guilds during the modern period, it viewed itself and its subject matter with sexist blinders. This is especially evident in the writings of travelers and novelists. Women are usually the creatures of a male power fantasy. So it means that when Orientalism was written at that time, women were not the focus in that way as they are today. The male was the person who was the Orient. And he was represented, he was talked about. And the question, if it was rising any time, if it was some label assigned to him, it was assigned only to the male. The women were seen with the eye of the male. And so they were mostly the fantasy of the powerful male. Let us see how, for example. 3 decades ago, Edward Said identified and articulated the process of Orientalism, the relationship of power and dominance where the Oriental was submitted to being made the Oriental. An illustration of the concept, Said used the example of Flaubert's encounter with an Egyptian courtesan, which produced a widely influential model of the Oriental woman. She never spoke of herself. She never represented her emotions, presence, or history. He spoke for and represented her. that was the situation, that women were not even represented or spoken of. And for this purpose, as I've written here, that Flaubert's encounter with Egyptian or courtesan was there. He slept with that woman for whole of the night, and she didn't speak a word even. She didn't even made any gestures, any movement. So she was simply a kind of silence, having no sound, having no emotions. That was the type of representation of women, according to Flaubert as well. Following this model, now we need to go forward and see what is the change now. Hagen, for example, says that because of globalization, because of digitalization of the world, there are no changes in these representations. Everything has been commodified. Even literature, that type of literature would be more acceptable if it is marketable, if it is saleable. The writer would like to sell it. And for this purpose, he needs to give those ideas and theories in his piece of literature, which may be possibly taken in the sense of Orientalism, that still the West would like to see. For example, a Pakistani writer, when he writes a kind of piece of literature, fiction, for example, he needs to talk about certain things because of which he can term us the bad people, like the matter of divorce, the matter of halala, these things they would like to present. And as a result, that would be appreciated and saleable. Because of marketing of literature, according to Hagen, the writer from South Asia, from Pakistan, from post-colonial literature, they have to come to satiation of the consumers of the West. So now, as we talked about the post-colonial literature, translating them to the empire writes back, it's not writing in the same sense that empire is writing back. It is writing very close to the understanding, beliefs, and conception of the West about the Orient people. And so it is saleable right now. It is because of the market that this change has come. Same change, according to Lisa Liu, has come. She says that while introducing the term re-Orientalism, she has marked out on how cultural producers with Eastern affiliations come to terms with an Orientalized East, whether by complying with perceived expectations of the Western reader or playing with them by discarding them altogether. So Lisa Liu also supports the idea that this is marketing, this is globalization, because of which the writers are compromising their status of representation of their own indigenous cultures and are coming towards the thing which is more acceptable in the West. But while doing all this, they are giving us another thing as a byproduct. That is what we need to see. And this byproduct will be related to the representation of women. Like if you look here, the marketing Orientalism now, not simply Orientalism, it's the marketing Orientalism. Hagen and Liu have strongly taken to task aggressive marketing mechanism adopted by Anglophone writers in portrayal of these stereotype tropes, labeling them to be the representation in the Western market. So these two theorists have given this idea that now the fiction produced after 9/11, that would be definitely representations, not purely of the indigenous people, but rather it will be the representation of the ideas or theology, let's say, or the belief, let us say, the people are having in the West about the Orient. So that is why now stereotypes are coming up once again, but these stereotypes, not only about the male, but of the female as well. For example, if we go down in this slide, Lisa Liu's opinion once again, she says, Oriental rights goes on as exaggeration, typecasting, stereotyping, exoticizing, pandering to the Western taste, demands, and expectations, selling out, having mercenary motives, playing to the gallery, to more sophisticated misrepresentation of totalizing, essentializing, subalternism, marginalizing, and most recently of all, re-orientalizing. I hope the people who know postcolonial, they may be understanding that these were the very things done by the white masters writing about us, and these are the very things which are being done by our own writers, whom we call Pakistani writers. By the way, this term is also very much conflicting. How and what ways are there to determine that this writer is Pakistani or he's not? We are confused to think about that, especially we are more confused when we read their writings and see that they are not representing indigenous culture the way they should have represented. They are taking care of the marketing Orientalism. So now you can see these two pictures. Above we have a different set of women sitting, and then we have a modern woman who's thinking. So that is why the change is mentioned here. First, the women, according to Orientalism, were simply attractive, domestic, could be known only as a wife or daughter or sister. And that is why it was a different kind of feminism, which we call post-colonial feminism, to deal with. Then 9/11 came. globalized digitalized world came, it lent a lot of power to every individual. So was the power lent to the women as well. And so now women are represented as assertive women, they are feministic women, and up to some extent, they are empowered women as well. That is the change. That is the trajectory that we need to know how this change came, why this change came, and the basic factor responsible behind that is the market-oriented Orientalism. So let's see how this thing is happening in our literatures. Pakistani writers, for example, they are also taking the same line as is the line taken by other post-colonial writers in case of their representation of women and the men, and they are following the same patterns which I have just described about. For example, I shall be quoting here only 3 examples from 3 pieces of fiction. Like Exit West by Mohsen Hamid, there are 3 women characters. One is Nadia, and the second one is the widow in London, and the third one is landlady in London. We shall take only one, that is Nadia. When Nadia goes outside of her country, which is never mentioned which country it is going to be, they migrate, interestingly enough, through magic doors and pass through different countries. And ultimately, they stay in London. And there the change comes in Nadia's thinking. Nadia, who had promised marriage, love, and the lifelong relationship with Said, as soon as she's settled in England, the very first sentence when she comes to Said after so many days, she says, I no more want to live with you. Where she wants to live? With a lesbian. She wants to have relationship with the woman in London, not with the man who came to her and bore all these difficulties. And that is the change. So Nadia is no more the example of a woman who would go behind wo sari umar ek ghar mein rehna hai aur wapas nahi aana hai. She changed her opinion. And how and why this opinion is changing? Because of the culture, as Dr. Wasim Saab said, that because of the cultural impact, this change has come. But that is the change. The concept of being lesbian is definitely, up to some extent, unacceptable, let us say, in our society. She couldn't claim such a thing here, but she is being represented as such a lesbian character in that novel. So that is the change in the Oriental woman, that she can assert herself, she can know about herself, she can have her belief, and after that she can emphasize her belief as well. Let's take the second example. In Home Fire, we have Anika, Isma, aunt, and then Terry, and then sister of Imon is there. But let's take only the example of Anika. Although the novel is based on Islamophobic feelings, and men are playing a big role in that, for example, Pervez, her father, they are declared to be terrorists. But what is actually happening, that Anika, even after being a woman, a young woman, she's the one who comes to protect her brother when he is alive. And when he's dead, she comes to collect the body of her brother. She enters into Pakistan, and there she faces all kind of abuse, whatever she can receive, but she stays there and claims her right that she can take the dead body of her brother back to London. This claim was never made by the women before that. That is the courage she shows. That is the way she is asserting herself, that she has a right to do so, and definitely she's doing so. So Anika is again a re-Oriental or new Oriental woman, not an Oriental in the past sense. Third novel that I have taken here, example from Hanif's Red Birds. We have a Kate, then it is Mother Dear, and after that ultimately it's Lady Flower. I will talk about the Mother Dear here. Mother Dear, a domestic woman, a wife, a mom, and doing everything which a wife would do or a mother would do. But she's the one who prepares herself, though just imaginatively, in order to fight the war with the Americans in order to bring her son back. She continuously claims, complains, and tries to tell her husband to bring the son back, but he fails to do so. Ultimately, she takes the task in her own hand and goes forward with her younger son and with the dog Mutt and with the kind of officer who is actually her own son. She goes there in the hangar and brings the son back with her. So it's simply imaginatively, not in reality she is able to bring back. But whatever the case may be, the writer has given us a woman who takes the side of her own ambitions, aims, and asserts herself, reaches there, and ultimately rescues her son as well. So in this way, these 3 examples go to show that representations of the women now in post 9/11 Pakistani post-colonial fiction is not that of the old Oriental women. It is the representation of the new women or that of the new Oriental women. But still, they are Oriental. So that is what is being done here by our people whom we call as Pakistani writers. So this is the change. This is the conclusion, that now our women are powerful. They are struggling for their rights. and they are partially emancipated, though partially. They're empowered as well. Still, they need to empower themselves more. But still, they are the others. They are considered in that sense, because when the word Orientalism would enter, at that time, it no more remains 100% free or independent. It is still the other. The Orient women now have become the women who could be called New Orient women with a change, with an assertion. And so much so that at certain moments, they are the terrorist people as well. But my topic is not like that. We may be talking in some other session about this, but so far, this is the kind of representation of women, and that's the change. So I conclude that in the beginning, Edward Said's Orientalism showed that women are being represented with the fantasy of the male eye, but it's not the case right now. Our current texts of the people written by Pakistani writers or whatever South Asian writers or post-colonial, they are representing the women with certain power. And that's the change, and that is why we call it New Oriental women. That was all from my side. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully there are no questions. So the topic is, where is the question? I hope no questions have appeared. Okay.
I'm just having a question from and maybe I'm asking for a consent here. Because I deliberately avoided commenting on Pakistani literature. And we all know that literature is evolved and the Pakistani literature is evolving. Despite the fact that we claim it to be Pakistani literature, we keep tracking and tracing what is Pakistani about. So my question to you would be that when you said, and you tried to highlight that Pakistani literature at the moment is doing this, and you have a long list of that. So would that be okay to think in terms of agenda? That there is an agenda that we are following, that we are trying to name as Pakistani literature? That could be too harsh actually. I'm sorry being that critical. And I didn't want to say that, but do you think there is an agenda behind it?
But Dr. Saab, I have come here to learn from you instead of telling you something. Well, Dr. Saab, I have always said that post-colonial literature especially, it is a political agenda. It was started with that. And so there is no harm in saying that it is an agenda to do so. But whose agenda it's going to be? That's a matter to be considered. I think if we say that it's Pakistani writers' agenda, it's not the case at all. It is the agenda of the master, the same master who used to be here when he ruled us. And so when we are writing in terms of the master, that our literature may be saleable, marketable, and may be acceptable all over the world, definitely the writer is taking care of that, what the white master thinks about. And so this is the kind of agenda or program given by him. Holy Women, for example, by Kesra Shiraz, that is talking basically about the traditions that we have, but which traditions? All those traditions which are, that is the holy women, as Bibi Ibadat, they would say the marriage with Holy Quran. So where this marriage is taking place actually, but the writer has, glaringly and flaringly brought it forward so that they can call us that we are the ones who marry our daughters with the Holy Quran. Same is the case with the Maps for the Lost Lovers by Nadeem Aslam. If the text name is right, I'm thinking. In that novel also, halala is very critically talked about. But in whole of the novel, no halala takes place. And giving talaq in 3 times, saying 3 words, talaq, talaq. That is what they are trying to highlight. And that again places us on the list of the others, the same others that Edward Said talked about. So therefore, definitely, your suggestion and comment is 100% right. Yes, please.
So as you have mentioned that it's a kind of agenda, but the agenda of the master that we are still under the domination and not in terms of political ideology or economic ideology, but also I would like to say literary ideology. So do you want, what is your opinion? Now, where is the creative element in Pakistani literature if it's being just a kind of an agenda?
But still, I would like to answer. Thank you, sir, for a very good question. In fact, I think most of us know about one term, which is called third space. Third space. This third space can be applied to the writers as well, Pakistani writers as well. On the one hand, they need to represent the indigenous people or their culture. And on the other hand, they need to imitate the master as well. Because when we say post-colonial, it is 50% representation of the indigenousness, let's say, or indigeneity, let's say, and 50% still going to be the imitation of the master. But no, the world is evolving, as you know, Facebooks and all these medias have come. If somebody does not talk in a right way, I mean, openly says that things are being followed with reference to white master, even they would come forward. No, it's not the case at all. You people are writing your own literature. We are not interfering into it at all. But the thing is still there. No, I would say, as far as creativity is concerned, third space is evolving. I should say, we should be thankful to these Pakistani writers that even after having all these difficulties, even after living in the Western metropolises, even after trying to include the landscapes of their countries, they have gradually developed the third space for themselves where they can claim that it is Pakistani literature, it is Pakistani writer. That third space is actually a brief space, a little window where this creativity can be found. And I think if these debates go on like we are holding today, and the writers are doing this, critical theories are coming up, and this will definitely come out one day with something which will be purely Pakistani literature, and that will be creative as well. Would you help me? Do you think this one? Women of post-colonial. The question is here, do you think women of post-colonial world become more free once enter the countries of the masters? I think all of you may be familiar with the novel of Pepsi Sidwa and American Bread. Okay, Firoza, the heroine there, when she is here, when she is a schoolgirl, in her school, her mother comes to pick her, and that mom is wearing Parsi, a traditional dress where arms are bare. And when she comes home, she says to her mother, please don't come my school. Why? Because you're not wearing the full clothes. That was the time when General Zia was living, right? But the same Firoza, when she goes to USA, there she decides her own marriage. And I think we are aware of the fact that Parsis don't marry their girls out of Parsis. And that is the only girl who says that this question should not be talked in USA. When I'm living there, I shall marry the man of my choice. Yes, it is right. When the women of Pakistan go to the other countries, which we mostly call our masters countries, we should not call it because it still reflects slavery in that. Let us say white people's metropolises, there the availability of the rights does this kind of factor that the women become more independent there. And in real life, you might have experienced that the women who travel and migrate towards Western areas, they become more powerful because of the money they are earning and because of the rights which these countries provide. But then this is the rights provided by those spaces. These rights are not available here with us. Till the time this difference will go on, and this rightfulness is only because of those countries, not because of us people or because of our males, even if they are residing there. And the question is again here, as in Hamid's novel, the realization awareness is coming after entering master's land. Does this mean still awareness is attributed to masters to keep them masters? Well, this is really very fascinating question, because today's world, Pakistan, for example, where it is standing, even after 70 years, it doesn't have the mental independence. The slavery is still there. The reasons being the modes of colonization. As yesterday I was reading in a newspaper that there will be the coal colonization. There will be the smoke colonization now. Colonization is changing its faces. It was colonization in the age of when Romans traveled to Egypt, for example, they occupied it, that was colonization there. Colonization still was there when Arabs traveled to India, and colonization has been happening all the time. But this colonization of the day after post 9/11 especially is the mental colonization by the tools like IMF, World Bank. See how we are raising the petrol prices, not because we need to raise, but because the IMF is forcing us. So in that way, the master is dividing the world all the time for their benefit. And perhaps this divide will go on. The world cannot run until and unless
all the people are having at least two categories. One, the powerful, other, the weak. Because if everybody becomes powerful, if the world wouldn't run like that, as might be the case with Marxism, that it demanded equality, and as a result, it's not, because it doesn't count with human efforts. So in that way, agenda of the West, agenda of the white people, agenda of the powerful. Let us ignore this white and black. Let us say the agenda of the powerful, wherever he is, that person will continue to distinguish between the less powerful, the weak, and the powerful. So that is why it is still the same thing going on, which we studied under colonialism. Now we are studying under this new colonialism. I hope it has. So thank you very much. The time people will be so nice of you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir, for your invaluable research. Now I would like to request Dr. Islam to please come up on stage and give away the souvenirs to our worthy keynote speakers that are present today. First of all, I would like to request Dr. Wasim Anwar to please come and receive his souvenir from Dr. Islam. Dr. Wasim Anwar, please. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Zia Ahmed to please come and receive his souvenir from Dr. Islam. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Saeed Akhtar to please come and receive his souvenir.